Shalom.
Love you.
And we're all prayered up and fired up and ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and turn the camera over to Tim and Charlene. And thank you for being here.
When was Yahusha's birth? That's the question I've heard so many times. And there's many different ideas of exactly when it was. The intention of this study is to help people understand the fallacy of the December 25 tradition of man. Was he born on December 25? That is the question. Is it possible this blessed event happened on December 25, which is the 9th day of the 10th month in Yahuwah's covenant calendar? In this study, the scriptures and the Hallelujah scriptures will be used mostly unless otherwise mentioned. Our salvation, Luke 2:11. Because there was born to you today in the city of David a Savior who is Messiah, the Master. And this is the sign to you. You shall find a baby wrapped up, lying in a feeding trough. I remember when I first discovered that concept of the feeding trough, I just shook my head. But that's what the Hebrew letter, or that's what the Greek letters point to, is a feeding trough. To ascertain the correct time of the birth of Yahushua HaMashiach, we must first find the details of the birth of John the Baptist. This takes us directly to his parents, Zechariah and Elisheva. Luke 1:5. There was in the days of Herodes, the sovereign of Yehuda, a certain priest named Zechariah of the division of Abiah. And his wife was of the daughters of Aharon, and her name was Elisheva. Zechariah's priestly duties. Zechariah was a priest within the Aharonic priesthood. Luke 1:5. In the last slide, informed us that Zechariah belonged to the Abiah division of priests. That's a very important factor. We also see that Zechariah belonged to the 8th division, and they, as others, would serve in the tabernacle 2 times within a year, not including the mandatory set-apart appointed times that each priest must serve. 1 Chronicles 24:10. The 7th to Hakots, and the 8th to Abiah. That's the 8th course of the priests. Zechariah, the Kohen HaGadol, was performing the sanctuary service at the altar of incense in the tabernacle. Zechariah would serve in the 8th individual week after the Tekufah, the vernal equinox, had initiated Yahuwah's new year. He would also serve during the weeks of Passover, unleavened bread, and Shavuot, when all priests must perform service duty together during the Moedim. Zechariah, while serving at the altar of incense, see that in Luke 1, verses 8 and 9, was burning the incense, roughly, in the week prior to Shavuot, or Pentecost. And a messenger from Yahuwah visits Zechariah. And a messenger of Yahuwah appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. This is the messenger's communication to Zechariah, Luke 1:13. But the messenger said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elisheva shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Yochanan," or John, as we used to know it by. The messenger's time frame. Did the messenger of Yahuwah provide a time frame of when Zechariah might expect this miraculous event to occur? Luke 1:20. But see, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day this takes place, because you did not believe my words, which shall be filled in their appointed time. Yahuwah's message clearly indicated that the words the messenger spoke were to be fulfilled on a moed, or appointed time. Question: was this specific appointed time a moed? You notice there's a capital on the moed, a set apart appointed time, or was it simply a moed, an appointment? Was that moed 4150? In Leviticus, we see the status of the moedim. Leviticus 23:4. These are the appointed times of Yahuwah, set apart gatherings which you are to proclaim at their appointed times. These are the moedim that have the capital M. And here we see the smaller M in the moed. In 1 Samuel, there is an example of a simple moed. 1 Samuel 20, verse 35. And it came to be in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a small youth was with him. So there's your difference between the capital moed and the small letter moed. One is just a simple time to meet somebody, and the other one is a Kodesh appointment, deemed Kodesh from Yahuwah. What is the difference between the two appointed times? One appointed time is a Kodesh, or set apart, appointed time, which can only be deemed Kodesh by Yahuwah. The other appointed time is just a normal set time to assemble for a normal reason. Yahuwah can appoint this type of appointment also, as well as man. The messenger of Yahuwah had informed Zechariah of the time frame when he could expect a newborn son, and when his voice would be returned to him. I'm sure he was quite excited to get his voice back. This specific time frame was deemed by the messenger as an appointed time. Was this highly important event to occur on a set-apart appointed time, as seen when the feasts and festivals are observed? Or was this child, the one to herald the coming Mashiach to the world, to be born on just an ordinary appointed day? Elisheva's repose, Luke 1:23. And it came to be, as soon as the days of his service were completed, he, Zechariah, went away to his house. Verse 24. And after those days his wife Elisheva conceived, and she hid herself 5 months. Elisheva became pregnant as promised by the messenger. Elisheva then took 5 months repose time, preparing to be a mother. When did the scriptures say, when the scriptures say, after Zechariah's service time was finished, does that include the time of Shavuot, where the high priest must do service also? Elisheva's 5 months of repose takes this time frame into the 8th month, which is around the end of October mark. Let's take a bit of time to summarize what we know thus far on a basic calendar format. There's Abib in the first month, and then there's the second month. And here's the Aharonic weekly priests' courses. There's the Passover, and then there's unleavened bread. And Zechariah of the Abia course, which placed in the 8th course of the year, was performing his first week of individual service. Now you see, I've got the weeks marked out as you go down that brown list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that 8th is the course that Zechariah was to serve as an individual service. Why does the one brown square not contain a number? That brown space represents the week that every Aharonic priest was scheduled to serve simultaneously. That space during the Feast of Unleavened Bread is not classified as an individual weekly course for just one priest. That is when they were all to serve together. The scriptures do not inform us if it was during this week of service in the Mishkan or if it was during the week of Shavuot that the messenger of Yahuwah related the incredible news of a son to Zechariah. It is quite likely, depending upon how the weekdays of the year landed, that this 8th course was the very course prior to Shavuot, or Pentecost. Zechariah returns home to Elisheva. Zechariah, being the Kohen HaGadol, was also required to serve during the Feast of Shavuot. The scriptures declare that Zechariah returned home to Elisheva after his service duty in the tabernacle had been fulfilled. Let's read from the scriptures of this account. Luke 1:23. And it came to be, as soon as the days of his service were completed, he went away to his house. And after those days, his wife Elisheva conceived, and she hid herself 5 months. This 5 months of hiding reaches at least into the 8th month of the year. When does Zechariah return home? Here we're going to look at a calendar just so we can have a visual to get an idea when he's going to return home. There's the first and second courses of the priestly rotations. There is your unleavened bread festival, which every priest assists. And then after the feast, the priest's rotations resume. Courses 4 to 7 priestly rotations are fulfilled. Now you'll notice in the brown column, I have 2 number 4s, the 2 blue number 4s. And that's because the first portion of that week is in 1 month, and the next portion is in another month. It's not a dual 4 just to complete that 1 week. Zechariah completes course 8 of service in the tabernacle and fulfills the Shavuot week also. He then returns home to Elisheva, making plans for a family. And that would be after Shavuot. Side note, the full week wherein Pentecost occurs is highlighted in the previous slide. This is seen in the recorded fact from the scriptures that the Kohanim started their weekly service on a Sabbath and ended on a Sabbath. And you'll see that in 2 Kings 11:9 and 2 Chronicles 23:8. Now let's return and look at the first 5 months of Elisheva's pregnancy. The first month of pregnancy, or hiding, for Elisheva. You'll see there's Abib, that's first month, then there's a second month. And in the box we read Zechariah's 8th course prior to Shavuot. And here Zechariah serves in the temple during Shavuot. Starting the following week, Zechariah returns home with family plans on his mind. Okay, there's month number 4. Elisheva's first month of pregnancy ended somewhere in the middle of the 4th month of the year. We are not given exact dates. I want you to notice that very, very closely. We are given approximate time frame. The 5 months of Elisheva's pregnancy. Okay, so we see in the middle, that is the 4th month of the year, and that is the first month of Elisheva's repose, where she went and removed herself from public vision, I guess. She needed to take some time off. There is the 5th month of the year, that is her 2nd month of pregnancy. And we continue the 6th month, that's her 3rd month of pregnancy. And here's the 7th month, that's Tishri. That is the 4th month of her pregnancy. And here is the 8th month of the year, and that would be her 5th month of pregnancy. These are the 5 months of Elisheva's hiding within the first 8 months of the year. Note, we are expecting that Elisheva became pregnant fairly quickly around the middle of the 3rd month. That brings the 1st month of pregnancy ending during the middle of the 4th month, and so on through the pregnancy. The 5th month of pregnancy would then have ended in the middle of the 8th month. This is an interesting one. Yahuwah's respect for a lady with a child. Yahuwah has provided a brilliant display of his high respect for a lady carrying a child within. Note that he did not tell Miriam of Elisheva's condition until her time of hiding had passed. It was on the last half of the 8th month of the year, into the 6th month of pregnancy for Elisheva, before Yahuwah sent a messenger to Miriam. That 6 months is very, very important. Miriam enters into the picture, Luke 1:26. And in the 6th month, the messenger Gabriel was sent by Elohim to the city of Galilee named Nazareth. Verse 27, to a maiden engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the maiden's name was Miriam. The 6th month of pregnancy was starting around the 15th, and that is in the 8th month of the year. Luke 1:36, and see, Elisheva, your relative, she has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month to her who was called barren. So that is the 6th month of her pregnancy. And if you look up Luke 1:5, there you'll see that Miriam, being a relative of Elisheva, was also of the bloodline of Aharon. For those wishing texts to show that Miriam was of the bloodline of Aharon, please look up Jeremiah 33:15, Zechariah 3:8, Zechariah 6:11-13. And you'll have to do a little bit of digging to get the connections in there. But those are very good verses to show the connection from Miriam to the Aharonic line, Aharonic bloodline. These flowers, these are some of my favorite flowers. These are from Nicaragua when I lived there. I just thought I'd put them in. Miriam dwells with Elisheva. Miriam immediately accepted the supreme responsibility of providing a womb and mothering Yahusha. She then took immediate action. Luke 1:38. And Miriam said, see the female servant of Yahuwah, let it be done to me according to your word. And the messenger went away from her. And Miriam arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste to a city of Yehuda, and entered into the house of Zechariah and greeted Elisheva. And Miriam stayed with her about 3 months and returned to her home. And you'll notice I emphasize that about 3 months. That's a very strong indication that we need to keep track of. Miriam's significance, Luke 1:30. And the messenger said to her, do not be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with Elohim. And see, you shall conceive in your womb, and shall give birth to a son, and call his name Yahusha. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Most High. And Yahuwah Elohim shall give him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Yaakov forever, and there shall be no end to his reign. And if you want to confirm a bunch of prophecies, there's a bunch of verses that really good springboard to go do some studying. There's another flower from Nicaragua. Love it. Let's look at the next 3 months of Miriam's visitation. Starting halfway into the 8th month, we count 3 more months. This brings time to midway through the 11th month. These 3 months saw Miriam staying with Elisheva, caring for her, and most likely assisting with the chores around the house. The grand meeting. What highly significant event occurred when Miriam met and greeted Elisheva? And it came to be, when Elisheva heard the greeting of Miriam, that the baby leaped in her womb. And Elisheva was filled with the set-apart spirit, and called out with a loud voice and said, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And who am I that the mother of my master should come to me? For look, when the sound of your greeting came to my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy." When does life begin? We have just been told when life begins from the scriptures. When the baby Yochanan, at approximately 6 months in the womb, realized the early beginnings of life at the point very near to conception in the womb of Miriam, he leapt with joy. Yochanan, while still in the womb, realized that life begins at conception. Should we also accept this as a very important lesson for our lives? Back to Luke and the 3 months. Luke 1:56. And Miriam stayed with her about 3 months and returned to her home. Miriam spends about 3 months with Elisheva. Miriam has entered the house of Zechariah and Elisheva. It is halfway into the 8th month of the year, and she stays for about 3 months according to Luke's account. And Miriam stayed with her about 3 months and returned to her home. And there is your 3 months, the 8th, the 9th, and 10th in the halfway mark. Miriam departs well into the 3rd month of visitation. Miriam entered the house of Elisheva and then returned home on the 11th month of the year. She stayed about 3 months according to Luke's account. Verse 56, and Miriam stayed with her about 3 months and returned home. So Miriam returned home in the 11th month. And from what I understand, it's around the middle of the month. I just said that, so I won't bother reading the box. You can read it yourself. It is good to carefully note that we have not been given solid dates to define the exact timing of Miriam's return to her home. We have been given only approximation times of this event. We cannot say for absolute certainty just when it was that Miriam returned to her home. We do know it was sometime before the Passover. Sorry about that. That was my phone going off. Assuming Elisheva's pregnancy began very shortly after Zechariah returned home, the months of her pregnancy would look like this. Pregnancy, there's month number 1, that would be in the yearly month of 3.5 to 4.5. Month number 2 of pregnancy would be in the 4.5 to 5.5 months, and so on. Continue down that list. That gives your months of pregnancy and the months of the year. Now, if you would note, the 9th month would go somewhere between 11.5 to 12.5. Somewhere in that area. Elisheva gives birth to Yochanan. Luke 1:57. And the time was filled for Elisheva to give birth, and she bore a son. The time frame established from the time Zechariah served in the tabernacle presents the position that Yochanan was born very close to the Passover season. Many people say it was on Passover. This author cannot go there. So what does this information of Yochanan's birth do for us? When was Yahusha born? By understanding the 6-month message during Elisheva's pregnancy and establishing Yochanan's approximate birth date, we can come very close to understanding about when our Mashiach was born. Luke 1 verse 26, and in the 6th month, the messenger Gabriel was sent by Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a maiden engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the maiden's name was Miriam. The messenger delivered the divine proposal and gave Miriam this next bit of timing information. What was the time separation? And see, Elisheva, your relative, she has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month to her who was called barren. When Miriam agreed to be the mother of Yahusha, and she conceived through the Ruach HaKodesh, there was approximately a 6-month difference separating Yochanan and Yahusha. What then is the next step? Was Yahusha born on December 25? How many months from Pesach to Sukkot? 6. 6 months from early Abib brings us to the beginning of Tishri, the 7th month, which is approximately the middle of September. This study was not created to pinpoint a day upon which Yahusha was born. Having seen many theories and angles on this, with all of them attempting to pinpoint a different day of birth, that will not be attempted here. Because of the absence of solid facts available to point to one specific day, this author will refrain from the effort. Was Yahusha born on the first day of Tabernacles? What is important is the fact that Yahusha was born near the beginning of Sukkot, a long way from December 25. Looking at Luke, we see the allowance for numerous days there in Bethlehem before Yahusha was born, quite likely before Sukkot. And it came to be that while they were there, the days were filled for her to give birth. This shows that Joseph and Mary were in Bethlehem for a short elapse of time before Yahusha was born. Declaring a certain specific birth date beyond any shadow of a doubt is just not possible from the information that we have. And I do invite any corrections that anybody has on that. If you have more information, I would greatly appreciate it. And you can send that to me if I'm wrong with this, if I have missed something. What is Israel's weather like in December? Would there be weather complications for a December birth for Yahusha? Israel in December. Ezra 10:9. Then all the men of Yehuda and Benjamin gathered at Jerusalem within 3 days. It was the 9th month on the 20th of the month, and all the people sat in the open space of the house of Elohim, trembling because of the matter, and because of showers of rain. That shows the type of weather in December. Ezra 10:13. But the people are many, and it is the season of showers of rain, and we are not able to stand outside, and the work not of 1 or 2 days, for we have greatly transgressed in this matter. Song of Songs 2:11. For look, the winter is past, the rain is over. gone. Why have I brought this out? Winter in Israel. The scriptures have just given us clear concept of the weather in Israel during the 9th month, which coincides loosely with December. It is rainy. This is the wet season. Do they receive snow? Absolutely. Do you expect your loving Father would cause Miriam to be traveling with a child, Yahusha HaMashiach, within in this type of weather? In the rain, the snow, the mud, the wind, on the back of a donkey, possibly? What about the shepherds who were tending to the sheep that were destined for slaughter as sacrifices for the tabernacle? Would they have kept the sheep out in the fields, extended 2 months beyond the normal times of bringing them to shelter on this particular year just to fulfill the Torah? I don't think so. When it's time for those sheep to be brought in for shelter, they would take them in. Or is it possible that the shepherds had their flocks in a protected environment prior to the arrival of the difficult winter season, exactly as they do today? A Jewish perspective. An interesting perspective is seen when listening to a Jewish person who has lived in Israel. When Christians try to tell them about Jesus being born at Christmas, and they see everyone celebrating the 25th of December as his birthday, they just shake their heads in dismay. They wonder if Christians have taken a serious fall and if they are no longer able to comprehend the scriptures, or if they are just plain intentionally ignorant of what is recorded within the scriptures pertaining to the birth of HaMashiach. They marvel at the thought of Yahuwah, the loving Father, causing Joseph to travel during the rainy season in the cold and mud with a very pregnant wife. Remember, the intention of this study was to help people understand the fallacy of the December 25 tradition of man, not his actual birth date. It is hoped that we will realize the immense importance that Yahuwah places upon the Moedim for timing of this universe. Also, that this importance will be understood and transferred in view of the final period of this earth. It is then the Moedim will have tremendous prominence in determining Yahuwah's events. We are commanded to remember Yahusha's death, not to celebrate birthdays. If we are commanded to celebrate his birth, let me reread that again. If we were commanded to celebrate his birth, there would have been a moed established for that purpose. Sukkot gives us an approximate time, not an exactness, for us to celebrate his coming to dwell with us on this earth. Part 2. What is the connection of Yahusha's birth to the Feast of Sukkot and for our assembly plans for today? Moshe climbed up Mount Sinai many times, 8 times for sure. The everlasting covenant that was reestablished were the spoken words and writing on tablets by Yahuwah. Abraham was already living this same everlasting covenant when he was given the covenant for possession of the land. This everlasting covenant given to Moshe was understood, agreed upon, and ratified by not only Moshe, but also by Aharon, Nadab, Abihu, and the 70 elders. What was the time frame and significance of it all in terms of our belief structure today? Exodus 24:3. And Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the right rulings. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahuwah has spoken we shall do. The Hebrew nation then sacrificed animals to Yahuwah, and Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the altar. Exodus 24:4-6. Exodus 24, we're going to look at in the next slide. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that Yahuwah has spoken we shall do and obey. Pretty strong words. And Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, see, the blood of the covenant which Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words. The sacrifices and the sprinkling of blood had been accomplished. What was the final necessary act to complete a full ratification of the everlasting covenant? A sealing meal must be eaten. Who ate this ultra-significant sealing meal? See that in Exodus 24, 9 to 11. And Moshe went up, also Aharon, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the Elohim of Israel, and under his feet like a paved work of sapphire stone, and like the Shemayim for brightness. Yet he did not stretch out his hand against the chiefs of the children of Israel. And they saw Elohim, and they ate and drank. That is the sealing meal for the blood ratified covenant that was given to Moshe, reiterated. Okay, the everlasting covenant was signed, sealed, and ratified. What weight should that have on our lives right now, today? In terms of our assembly here today, what statutes were included within the agreement that all Yisrael accepted and vowed to stand by? These verses are coming up. 3 times in the year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Guard the festival of Matztoth. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I command you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Mitzrayim, and do not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors which you have sown in the field, and the festival of ingathering at the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors in the field. 3 times in the year, all your males are to appear before Yahuwah. Pretty solid statement. Pretty hard to sidestep that one. Some of us here today have voluntarily chosen to obey the statutes of Yahuwah and will present ourselves before him in accordance with the blood-ratified everlasting covenant. It is the very same everlasting covenant that Moshe and the Hebrew nation agreed to obey. Let us choose to assemble on Yahuwah's Kodesh appointed time. It is the final Kodesh appointed time of the yearly worship cycles. This has been to commands of the timing factor. I think that sentence needs to be changed. Anyhow, what then is the reasoning or purposeful theme of Sukkot? What is the meaning of the Hebrew word Sukkot? We're going to look in the Kohler and Baumgartner Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon. Sukkot, or Sukkah. Number 1, a lion's lair. Number 2, hut made from twigs and matting. Sukkot, number 1, on the Feast of Tabernacles, a person lives for 7 days in a Sukkot made from leafy branches on roofs and in courtyards. What does John Parkhurst say in his Hebrew lexicon? You'll note this one is from 1776. Sukkot, a pavilion, booth, bower, tabernacle, covert, or the like. Little booths or huts are still usually erected in the eastern gardens for the sake of watching them. 1 Kings 20, 12, and 6. Pavilions. 16, I should say. Pavilions. But it probably means no more than slight temporary booths made with the boughs of trees. Yahusha became visible, born on this earth, possibly immediately prior to Sukkot. A sukkah is a dwelling place of sorts. Yahusha, in birthing, came to dwell with us. Starting with the Feast of Sukkot, Yahusha lived on this earth, fulfilling the will of Yahuwah, the Torah guidelines, word for word, without discrepancy. What then is the reasoning for observing and rehearsing future festivals of Sukkot? What were the words of Yahusha in Matthew 26:29? But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of the fruit of this vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Until that day. And the words of Yahusha in Mark 14:25. Verily I say unto you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it anew in the kingdom of Yahuwah. Also the words of Yahusha in Luke 22:18. For I say unto you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of Yahuwah shall come. Considering that Yahuwah does not change, Malachi 3:6, what will be established once again in the kingdom of Yahuwah? What has Yahuwah asserted that he will do at this particular time? And I shall make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. It is with them. And I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my Migdash in their midst forever. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. Every time I read this verse, it really, really hits me hard, because it says here, and cause you to walk in my statutes. And for some reason, every time I read that, I question, are those the statutes that were abolished? Are those the statutes that are no more, that are removed, that we don't have to obey? How come he is going to cause us to walk in the statutes that were abolished, that were removed, that are taken away, that are non-existent? And it just doesn't make any sense to me. How people can understand that those statutes are no more to be obeyed, it's beyond me, because right here he's telling us very clearly they're going to be reestablished. And then he says, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. It doesn't say recognize them, know that they are there and ignore them. We are to do them. We will be doing. That is the word Shema. Listen and act accordingly. What everlasting covenant and its contents will be established in the kingdom of Yahuwah? This kingdom of Yahuwah will realize the very same everlasting covenant as given to Abraham, reiterated to Moshe, which he then ratified by blood, and reestablished with the life and death of Yahusha HaMashiach. What conditions does the everlasting Melchizedek covenant contain? Exodus 23:14-15. 3 times in a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Guard the festival of Matzot. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I have commanded you, at the time appointed in the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Mitzrayim, and do not appear before me empty-handed. And the festival of the harvest, the first fruits of your labors which you have sown in the field, and the festival of ingathering at the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors in the field. 3 times in the year, all your males are to appear before the Adon, or the proper name, Yahuwah. Yes, I am looking forward to Sukkot this year. Really, really looking forward to it. The same everlasting covenant with the feasts and festivals will also be celebrated in Yahuwah's kingdom. We will be rehearsing for that momentous time when we will be fully Yahuwah's people. Revelation 2:26 and 27. And he who overcomes and guards my works until the end, to him I shall give authority over nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, as the potter's vessels shall be broken into pieces, as I also have received from my Father. A couple of years ago, there was a friend of mine. He was not new to the faith, but he, kind of fairly new. He looked up this word guard. And I tell you, he was jumping around and dancing. It totally energized him, because when he realized that word guard means to do, to protect, to uphold, withhold, enforce. When he realized the depth of that word, it really hit him. He was so excited. When does the festival of Sukkot end? Zechariah 14:9. For the full context, you'll want to start reading from verse 1. And Yahuwah shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahuwah, and his name one. And the Sukkot timing information, Zechariah 14:16 to 21. Here's verse 16. And it shall be that all who are left from the Gentiles, which came up against Jerusalem, shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the sovereign Yahuwah of hosts, and to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. Just want to inject a little bit here. When you go back up into that second line and you read from year to year, that word year is shaneh. That word makes it very, very crystal clear that there is not a possibility in any way, shape, or form of a lunar year. It simply cannot be. And I'll tell you right now, that word shaneh is used 875 times in the Tanakh. That word is used in Genesis 1:14. That word shaneh identifies Yahuwah's covenant calendar and isolates it from all else. I have a study coming out on this. I am excited, to say the least, to have this study come out. It is, in my opinion, it's going to bring the house down on the lunar calendars. But that's just my little opinion right now. Let's move on. When does the festival of Sukkot end? Verse 17. And it shall be that if anyone of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem to bow himself to the sovereign Yahuwah of hosts, on them there is to be no rain. And if the clan of Miriam does not come up and enter in, then there is none. On them is the plague with which Yahuwah plagues the Gentiles who do not celebrate the festival of Sukkot. This is the punishment of Miriam and the punishment of the Gentiles that do not come up to observe the festival of Sukkot. We are commanded to observe Yahuwah's word for 1,000 generations. There is 3 witnesses in your scriptures. Look them up. That command projects obedience to Yahuwah's word well beyond the time frame brought to view in Revelation 21:22, when the earth will be made new and when sin will be no more. Interestingly, this obedience time projection fits perfectly with the information of those who will and will not observe the festival of Sukkot. which we received from Zechariah. The final Sukkot on this contaminated earth will be after Revelation 12:14, and the woman who was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly in the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. That is 3.5 years, or 4 full cycles of the Moedim feasts, ending with the festival of Sukkot. Again, and we are told that these festivals are abolished. Wow. Not in my books, not in my Bible, they're not abolished. Daniel identifies this earth's final festival of Sukkot. And I heard the man dressed in linen who is above the waters of the river, and he held up his right and his left hand to the Shemayim, and swore to him who lives forever that it would be for an appointed time, appointed times and a half. And when they have ended the scattering, the power of the Kodesh people, then all these shall be completed. That is from the Hallelujah Scriptures. Again, an appointed time, appointed times, and a half. Let's deeply consider the idea of Yahusha arriving on this earth before Sukkot to dwell with us. Let's look forward to the festival of Sukkot with plans to rejoice because Yahusha HaMashiach lives. Thank you, and may Yahuwah bless you immensely.